Hello, arty peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I am your host this evening, and I am joined by the amazing Heather Goldstein.
Hello.
So, Heather is, what is your official position here at Jerry's?
Product development.
Yes, and she is also, I'm officially making it your title, Queen of Canvas Knowledge.
Cool.
Yes, so... Heather is part of the official family here and, you know, has grown up with art supplies, so it's just a lot of knowledge.
Tons of knowledge that's only useful here.
Yes, it's amazing. Well, I mean, it's useful, I feel like, everywhere, but very select situations. But before we officially jump into today's episode, which, by the way, is JL226, in case anybody's wondering, and we are going over all things canvas panels. So canvas mounting, all the things that are part of that kind of category. And so if you are looking for anything that we are going over in today's show, go to the website jerrysartorama.com and type in the search bar, which is at the top, the code for today's class, which is JL226. That should bring up the teacher's cart, and everything we are going over should be in there, so you can check it out that way. But officially, before we jump in, quick reminder for all of you people out there, 10th annual self-portrait contest is still happening right now, so make sure you guys check that out. I know my moderators, Frida and Amanda, are going to be putting that link in the chat as well, so you guys can take a look there. But let's jump in officially.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so canvas panels. The very first one we officially have.
All right, so the first one we're going to start out with is the Creative Mark canvas panel. And I do want to say, so the reason why I chose this one is because it is an actual canvas mounted to panel. It's a lightweight canvas with an acrylic gesso primer on it. But,
so there's the back, and that's upside down. Sorry. So that's the Creative Mark artist panel, and there's the size. It's always written on there as well, in case you need it. But
so I do want to note, because people are definitely drawn to these, and they are fantastic practice panels, but keep in mind that as far as archivability, as far as that goes, this isn't the one that you want to use for your final paintings. These are great for practice paintings or studies, but this is just, you know, a really great economical option where you're using actual canvas on the board. Emmy has some acrylic paint on here so you can see the texture. It's a lightweight canvas but kind of has a medium texture on it.
So you guys can see there. And this is, just so you guys do know throughout the show, any of the universally primed canvas panels, I did do a little bit of a blue swatch in the corner just so you guys can see the texture. It is always the same color, which will come into play when we show you the next panel.
Ones.
Yes. But it's still a very sturdy board.
Right.
It has just an ever so slight ability to bend it because it is not like wood, but it is a solid board.
Yeah.
And it's great for practice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So there is that one. And then we have...
Next ones we have are the Protones. So these are on an archival board, so that means you can do your final pieces on these, no problem. This was actually developed really for plein air. You can of course use them in the studio. That's just that the initial idea was when you are painting plein air, you don't want any sort of reflective surface, and we all know how intimidating that white gesso is.
Yes, and that's, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get a panel and I have to initially tone it.
Yeah.
This takes that step out of the equation.
Right. And it's, you know, for neutral, semi-earth tones, which is, you know, a good place to start. And when you are painting plein air, it just takes that initial toning process out of it. You can just paint on them.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, all of the colors in and of their own right are wonderful. Like, I mean, I just, any of them in general, like 9 times out of 10, I go with a burnt sienna for my tone. This is the Sahara, which also, in case you guys do any of the paintings and you forget what initial color you had gone over, like if you covered most of it, it actually is written here on the back of the panel as well as the size. But this reminds me of that burnt sienna so much. And again, it's a pretty sturdy board. Again, it's not wood, so it does have a slight flex to it, but it's nice and thin and it's solid. But they're quite lovely.
But these are a great option. They're lightweight. It is a sturdy surface. You can fit a lot of them in your bag when you're traveling. So definitely a good way to go.
Yes. Now, just so anybody out there is curious, the texture from one to the other. And actually, let's switch over to that side camera so we can really see a nice, there we go. So you have the texture of the initial panel that we were showing, which is the creative mark there. And then that's the texture of that, the Protone. So it's very similar. And it's got a nice like texture to it, but this is actual canvas. This is cotton?
Yes.
Yes. So it's a really nice surface, but remember this one's not archival, but this one is.
Right.
Okay.
And while I don't know if you want to do it on that camera as well, but I think this is really a great option to show how that toning affects your painting, because it affects the way the colors look on top of it.
Yeah, that is a fantastic point, because I mean, I use the same color in all of them, but you can see how different they look just by the base tone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool to see, but fantastic options.
Everything's relative.
Yes.
Great how that works.
All right, so now that we have those, the next one up.
Oh, no. We were going to
Are we? Oh, I do apologize. I'm out of order. Take it back. Which I'm not actually mad about because this is my favorite.
Yes. So this is the Senso clear primed linen, and I personally also love this one.
Just shove this up to the camera so you guys can see. Look at that beautiful linen.
So the Senso is also archival. This is a clear prime linen with a universal primer. So you can paint, oil, acrylic, any of those things on it. But the other cool thing that I like about this is it's really great with like pastel and oil pastel, charcoal, things like that. It's just a really nice surface.
But not watercolor, correct?
Not watercolor.
Okay.
No, this is...
So even though it is universal primed,
yeah.
acrylics, oils, dry media, but not watercolor.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
which, I mean, if you did want to do a watercolor, you could use the Yes panels.
Yes.
Those you can do. So that also, the Yes canvas that we've covered in the original show that we did for Canvas Palooza.
Yes.
That ends up, see? Yes. Yes canvas. It
Exclamation point.
Yes. Okay, so now, sorry, for anybody wanting to see, this is the back of that panel. Nice and clean, but this linen is lovely. And actually, let's switch over to that side camera so I can show you the texture real quick.
Yeah.
Because it's so pretty. I love this so much. But that's, again, the same color blue, so you can see how it really changes when it's, a different color ground. And this, even though it's primed already and it's ready to go, it has that lovely neutral tone to it.
I love painting on clear prime linen. It's one of my favorites.
It is so beautiful. Definitely a fan favorite. Okay, so now this one. I take it back. So this is the Centurion LX
Universal primed. Right. So the Centurion, again, we went over the linen itself. This is the same as the linen that we sell on the roll and also comes in stretch canvases. This is a medium texture linen. It's the Universal Prime is, just like we've been saying, great with oil, acrylic, any of those things. Linen just has a longer shelf life, I guess. It's more archival than cotton.
And it's stronger, too.
It's stronger, and I personally just prefer the surface over cotton.
Now, just so you guys can also see, let me grab this. This is, again, the original Creative Mark panel here. So you can see this is the Creative Mark texture, and this is that Centurion. So they both are nicely textured, but I swear, like, the weave of this is just a little bit finer. And it's just got a slightly more smooth quality to it.
Yeah.
But they're both really lovely. But again, this is archival. This is not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, lovely panel. Now,
For the Centurion, it comes in the universal prime like we just saw, but it also comes in an oil prime.
now this one, I do apologize for the reach because I just couldn't have it stacked down here because we have this lovely thing. And this is an oil painting swatch, and it is not officially dry. So anytime you see this color as opposed to this color, this is oil, this is acrylic.
So, right. So any oil prime surface, you can use oils or alkyds on them. You cannot use acrylics or any of those things.
Yep.
You can use oils and alkyds on a universal primed canvas. The difference is that on the oil primed surface, it's going to actually sit on top of the surface as opposed to sinking in to that acrylic primer. So you'll have a much more brilliant color when you're painting on an oil primed surface.
Yeah. And that's it. I will say the texture of it is almost identical because it's the same.
Yeah.
It is the exact same actual surface. But this is just have that. Then we find out that this has quite a few different layers. I believe it's quite. Here.
No.
There we go.
That one is, I think they're both double or triple primed. One with universal, one that's, I think you're thinking of the Pissarro.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. We were thinking of the. I do apologize. We were thinking of a different one that we're about to show you as well. But yeah, there's the texture of this Centurion oil primed. So that's why I did switch over to the oils and not acrylics because oils reject acrylics, guys. It's not a good plan. But again, it's still the same kind of surface. It does have a slight bend to it because it is not wood, but it is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unlike a stretched canvas, any of these boards are not going to have that springiness to the canvas because it's mounted to something solid.
Yeah. Very, very solid. Now, the next one, again, sorry for the reach.
This is one of my favorites. So this is the Bellarti Raphael panels. These are mounted on, I think, 3/8 inch plywood. So this is what I would consider a studio panel. You can, of course, take it with you and paint plein air like any other panel.
There's the back of it.
But it is a little bit thicker, which makes it more sturdy, so you can go a little bit larger with the size.
Now here, just so you guys can see, here is the
Yes.
normal panel size that I pretty much across the board, they're all very similar to this. This is the panel that we're talking about now, the Raphael. So you can see that it is wood and it is a little bit thicker.
It's thicker. They're not super heavy. It's still a lightweight board, just not as lightweight. These are all just varying degrees. The Raphael is coated 4 times oil primer. It's a super smooth surface, Italian linen.
Yeah,
One
I
of
was
my
gonna say, this is
favorites.
so pretty.
I just really love that one.
It is quite lovely. Now, again, this is something that we mentioned in the original show. If anybody is wondering about the different types of canvas that we have on here, we did go over the yellowness of this panel.
Yeah.
And that's due to,
Oil.
yes, the oil content in there. And it just happens to yellow over time. And to get rid of that,
Just leave it out in the sun.
yes, sunshine fixes it. So if you leave your oil paintings out in the sunshine or your panels before you even
Well,
paint
the
them,
panels, you
yeah.
don't want to leave oil paintings out in the sun because that
Yes.
will affect your colors. But if you want to make sure that I personally like the yellowness because it's like toning down your canvas from the get-go.
Very true.
But if you want to make sure that that's a brighter color, you can just leave it out in the sun and it'll bleach it.
And this, I will say, because again, this is solid. This doesn't have any flex because it is wood, but this is just super lightweight. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's like nothing. I feel like
Yeah.
I can frisbee it, which I won't because I'd probably hit and break something, which
Yeah.
would not be good.
There's lots of breakable stuff.
Yeah, let's not do that.
But that one is a fine weave portrait linen. And then we have the Pissarro linen, which is also from Bellarti, mounted on 2 different panel options. So these are really cool. To start off with the surface, the linen itself is like a medium weave and then kind of a heftier linen. I think primed it's 17.92 ounces primed.
Yeah. So it's got a good, like, weight to the actual linen itself.
Right. And this is the one that has 2 layers of glue sizing, 2 layers of acrylic priming, and then the top coat is oil priming.
Yeah.
So this is a really nice surface. The 2 panel options. So this one is the lightweight board. It's mounted on Sintra foam core. So it's an archival product. It's actually, I mean, it is a sturdy board.
But it does have that flex to it, like, because I can see as you do this, like, it can flex, but it's still not, like, this isn't something that I would be worried about, like, snapping or...
Right.
Like,
Definitely
it is
not.
solid.
But it is very lightweight. It's great to travel with, and it will hold up. The other option that we have is the ultra lightweight butterfly panels, which are 1/8 inch thick. So these are super,
Let
super
me
thin.
actually show them the 2 different on the side camera here. So you can see the difference here. And actually, let me grab, sorry for the reach again. So this is the Raphael right here, that thick board that we had. And then you can see the difference between all of the panels. They are quite sturdy. I mean, they're all quite sturdy, but like this one is the lightweight, and then this is that butterfly panel that Heather was just talking about. So it's just so thin.
So the 1/8 inch foam core,
This
and
one.
then the 1/32 inch multimedia art board. And the only other thing I wanted to mention about the butterfly panels, the 1/32 inch one, is that it is on multimedia artboard, which means on the other side you can actually draw or paint in watercolor or even acrylics. Since it's so thin, you don't want to go very heavy on the paint. But the nice thing about that is you can do your initial sketch and then flip it over and then do your painting. So especially for, you know, when you're painting plein air and you want to carry a lot of surfaces with you.
Oh, yes.
This is super lightweight. They come in packs of 10 and you're getting 2 surfaces technically.
Yes.
So I really like these. I think they're a really spectacular option.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm gonna be going to an artist residency later on in the year, and these are the ones that I'm gonna be bringing.
Yep.
Because I mean, even though the one on the board, the Raphael, is so light, this is just ridiculous. This is almost like paper, but the fact that you can flip it over and do another sketch on the other side.
Yeah.
So exciting. Hello, dual-sided canvas panel. Like, that's
Love it.
wonderful.
Love it.
And it's, again, this side is oil primed, and this is actually something I was asking you earlier. On this side, that oil primer does not affect
No.
this side.
No, because you have a universal primer and, more importantly, the glue sizing in between it. Well, the glue sizing on the canvas, then the archival glue that's attaching the canvas to the panel. But because of all of that, the oil primer is not going to affect the board at all.
Yeah. It's not like they put the oil primer on the canvas after they've glued it all together as well. So that's really, really awesome. And that's why, I mean, even to be able to use this side for watercolor and this side for oils, and then it not affect both.
Exactly.
Mind blown.
Very cool stuff.
Now this one though, the original, and we did not actually talk about this, so I'm kind of springing this on Heather, I'm sorry. The other side of this.
That is just a Sintra foam core, so it's not a
It's
a
not
surface that you-
absorbent
Right.
at all. Like this is, it feels almost like plastic.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say you could do with that is like collage.
Yeah.
It's not,
And this is the one that's a little bit thicker.
yeah. I mean, it's still
The
like
lightweight.
1/8 inch, so
Yeah.
it's still very thin.
Little thicker. Now, before we officially move on, though, do we have any questions before I officially jump through the next couple of them? I think
You don't currently, but you might get some now that you've asked.
All right. Well, we are going to move on to the next chunk of panels that we have. And if you do have questions, though, pop them in the chat. We'll make sure that our moderators, Amanda and Frida, will take a look at them. So, the next panel.
So we're going to get into the Da Vinci panels. The
Yes.
first one that we have here is the Da Vinci dual side panel.
I might as well just bring all of these up.
This one is very cool. First of all, because it is dual-sided, primed on both sides, it makes it even more resistant to warping because you have that equal pressure, or however you want to say that. Priming on both sides
Priming.
makes it
Sealed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very sealed in.
Exactly.
So there's no, like, it's not
No
going to
warping.
absorb. Yeah.
You also have options. So you have the ultra smooth surface on this side, and then the medium surface on the other side.
No, actually, let me show the difference on that side camera here. So this right here is the medium. So you guys can see. It's got a nice, like, texture, and it's still very smooth.
Yeah, just
but
a
like it
little bit
has
of
a
a tooth.
little bit of a that like sort of grittiness to it, but it's still very nice and smooth. And then over here is the other side that ultra smooth, which honestly the only texture you're really seeing is the bristle marks.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
it's
those are-
nothing.
It is definitely ultra smooth.
Yeah.
And this is a 1/4-inch panel. So this is, very sturdy panel. So those two come in our traditional Da Vinci panels, the cradled panels as well.
Yes.
So the ultra smooth come in a 3/4 inch or a 2-inch cradled panel, and the medium comes in a 7/8 inch or 1 5/8 inch depth panel.
Yes. So this is the ultra smooth. Like this is the dual sided panel. This is the ultra smooth where it's cradled, which just means that it has like a thickness, like almost like a frame on the back side of it. This is again this exact same surface. This is the ultra smooth, and then this is the medium texture, which is also the same as this side.
And also, to bring up the warping issue, the cradle on these, since these are not primed on two sides and the panel itself is a little bit thinner, these have the cradle, which is going to keep it from warping.
Now, do we have a question?
We do. On the dual-sided panel, can you use those for acrylic paint pouring?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine acrylic paint pouring would be great on this.
Any of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Any of the Da
that's-
Vinci, yeah.
Every time I do a paint pouring, I always struggle with the sides. Maybe it's just me, but like the part where it like gets dripped off the side, I struggle with that. I don't know why. This would probably be really
drip off.
I know. I don't like that I lose most of my paint, so like I try to get it like up to the edge but not falling off. That's me. I struggle bus so hard, but like I feel like this would be great for that, and it would be very sturdy. Yes. We have another question.
I was just thinking you could use a knife,
A palette
a
knife
palette knife,
to kind of
to
just
scrape
slightly.
the edges after it sort of settles a little bit.
Oh, Frida with a win. Frida's so smart. But yes, so this is the dual-sided panel. Sorry, medium texture, and then the ultra smooth, and then we have just the actual panels that are cradled. And the ones that we're showing here are the thinner ones. So this is 7/8 of an inch, and this is the 3/4 of an inch.
Yep.
And these also come much beefier.
Yeah.
Yes. And did we go, I'm sorry, did we go over this?
No, not yet.
Okay, just
So-
making sure. I'm not losing track of where we're at.
So into the Da Vinci Pro panels, we also have a resist grip, which is a coarse texture for the panel. This is great for impasto painting, where you have lots of layers. It's also nice for, because it has that tooth, it can hold on to encaustic really well. And you can
It's like
also
a grittiness to it.
you can also draw on it. So like pastels and things like that.
Yeah, actually, when I did the oil pastel class, God, that was about like a year ago. One of our other Jerry's Lives that I did, where I did oil painting or oil pastels, I used the resist grip, and it actually really, really holds on to your oil pastels really well. And we were talking about this earlier, because if you wanted to tone this before you actually do your pastels, that's an option.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a question?
How absorbent are these panels? Can you use them with watercolor?
No.
I wouldn't use watercolor on these. They're pretty absorbent, but I wouldn't say watercolor is going to soak in.
Unless something says it's specifically for watercolor, or sometimes if it's mixed media, I wouldn't use watercolor. You can buy watercolor grounds, so you could paint it with a watercolor ground
Yes.
and then use it.
Yes, definitely.
But I wouldn't paint it with watercolor directly on there.
Yeah, I don't think it would absorb enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And with watercolor, like it can do weird things on the surface, so you just kind of don't know. You can always play around with it.
It's true. We are artists. We are meant to break all of the rules.
Yeah.
But
Very true.
rule of thumb is make sure it says it's for watercolors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this one though, it is definitely fun for a lot of dry media. And just in general painting. Now I will say, the other show that I have done with the Ultra Smooth, I was doing the Lucas Pastos, which is an impasto painting acrylic. I put a huge blob, which I actually think I still saved the blob, not gonna lie. His name is Blobby LeBlante.
You have
I
a
believe.
number of blobbies.
I do have a lot of blobs, paint blobs everywhere. I have a jar of paint blobs, actually. I did put a paint blob directly on this surface, and it took me a lot of muscle to pry it off of here. And this is the Ultra Smooth. So I will say, even the Ultra Smooth is fantastic for if you're going to do impasto painting. And I literally found that out through trial and error. So I would say any of these panels are great if you want to do an impasto painting, but that resist grip, just because it has that texture.
Definitely made for it.
Yes. But you can use the other ones if you're interested. So, but again, this one is also the cradled, so it's very sturdy. There is no wiggle to this, but it is a nice little panel.
Yeah.
And then the last one for the Da Vinci is my favorite.
Love the birch.
Yes.
So the birch comes in 3 different cradles. It has the 7/8 inch, the 1 and 5/8 inch, and 2.5 inch.
Yes.
The birch is a wonderful surface. You can prime it and paint on it. You can mount your canvas on it. You can, you can really do.
You can
pretty
do
much
collage.
anything.
You can do, a whole lot of everything. But just a good thing to note is that this is raw birch.
Yes.
It is not sealed. It is not anything. It is just straight birch. So if you do paint on this and you put like acrylic directly on the surface, it's going to soak up. You can do that, but like the issue
It'll
being is
just
that,
soak it in a lot.
yeah, you're going to be burning through your paints a lot more. So if
But
you want to
can just put a clear primer on there.
Exactly.
Because, I love the look of the birch. So, assuming you want to paint on it and you want to keep that birch finish,
Yes.
just put a clear primer.
that way it's got a nice surface to really
Yeah, if you're
sit
going to
on.
paint in oil, I would recommend using like the Gamblin PVA sizing. So that will seal your surface in. Or if you're using acrylics, you can for oil as well. But like Golden makes a clear gesso, so does Liquitex.
Yeah, there's a lot of options
yeah.
as far as primers.
Yeah.
Now, did we have a question?
Yes. Is there a preferred way to refer to a painting on a canvas panel? She's saying, for instance, in a gallery or show, would you say oil on canvas or oil on panel? Or is that like up to the artist?
It's up to the artist for
Yeah.
sure, but I would say for the gallery, it's more important like if it's on linen or canvas. So to say, even if it's on a panel or it's stretched, say, You don't have to say linen panel, you can. But I would say on canvas, on linen, or...
Yeah, because that's, I think the surface of what your paint is stuck to is probably
Right.
more important than, I mean, you can always
I
say
mean,
stretch canvas as well, but you don't have to.
To me, if I saw something that said, you know, oil on panel, I wouldn't think that there was a canvas surface on it. I would think that it was, you know, painted on birch or something like that.
No, if I did a painting on this for like, I did the oil pastel with the Art Aspirer. I can never say this.
Orangi Art Aspirer.
Art Aspirer. I did the oil pastels directly on this surface, and it looks wonderful.
Yeah.
By the way,
I love that piece.
So pretty. And I didn't seal this at all because I also wanted to kind of see how well it would stick, and it sticks wonderfully. But I would have said oil pastel on birch panel.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's always up to the artist, but just to get a little bit more specific, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But definitely a fan favorite here in the studio. Love this. Now the last one we have is a fun one, super fun. Hopefully I don't add. I just added fingerprints to this. I do apologize. But that is the name of the game with this, and I do apologize. You're gonna have a lot of glare with this one because
this is Alumicomp. It's
Yes.
an aluminum composite panel. It is archival, it's warp proof, it's lightweight, very, very cool surface. It has a smooth polished side, and then it also has a brushed aluminum side as well. So you know, you can paint on either side, just personal preference.
yes, me personally, I love that brush is beautiful. And so I'm gonna try and make sure to hold this to where you guys can actually see, but you can clearly see this right here. This side is the raw aluminum. This side we did a little extra something to it.
So with the aluminum panels, there are a number of ways that you can use these as a painting surface. The first that we're going to go over is to use it and paint directly on it. So if you're going to paint in acrylics, you need to use a metal primer.
Yes.
Acrylic will not adhere to the aluminum surface, so you need something on there that will adhere. So even if you put a gesso on, the gesso is an acrylic gesso, you need to do the metal primer first.
I definitely did not realize that until I didn't accidentally. I gessoed one of these panels and then it actually was flaking off.
Yeah.
Which is that adhesion issue that you were talking about.
Right. So there is a product called Kills, which is metal primer. They now have a Kills Clear, which is awesome. So you can have...
Not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah.
We literally got this from a home improvement store.
Yep.
You know, it's one of those things. But this is specifically a metal primer.
Yes.
And it's clear, which is something that we were looking for. But if you are wanting to do that, this is a great option.
Right.
You have a lot of other things that you could find in a Home Depot.
Yeah, I
or
mean, you can
Lowe's.
also use a normal metal primer, which would be a white coating, and you still have all the benefits of the aluminum panel, where it's archival and lightweight and all of the things. But what we have here is Emmy had done that swatch with the acrylics, and then we only did half because we also wanted to show you if you are painting in oils, you can paint directly in oil on these. So you can prime it with an oil primer like you would, or if, for me personally, because I like having that surface behind it and to let that show through, you can just paint in oils. The oil will adhere to the aluminum panel.
So oil paint directly to surface.
Right. But one thing, what I found when I was painting on them, it's easier to kind of like oil out the surface before you start. So what I used is a lean medium. So you're going to be painting fat over lean when you're painting, so you want those initial layers to be leaner.
Yes. Because we could do this process with a linseed oil
Right.
to where it would keep that clear. It would oil your surface and give you that initial layer, and it would stay clear to where you could see the aluminum behind it. But what you're
it's-
saying is
You want to use your leanest layers at the bottom, so lean oil.
yes.
We clean this off with denatured alcohol first because you want to remove all of the grease and the fingerprints and all that good stuff.
And your fingerprints will stick to it. It's probably way more visible on this side.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually see all of the fingerprints I just cleaned this off before
Yeah.
the show. This is just from picking it up, you know? Anytime you touch this, the oils from your hands are going to be on here. So whether or not you're doing the acrylic or what we're about to do with the oils, clean it.
Yeah.
And I mean like right before you prime your surface, clean it. Because it will get everywhere. All right, so this is just the isopropyl alcohol. I can say words. And it evaporates pretty quickly because it's
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
But now that's nice and ready for Heather to prime it.
So you just need a very thin coat. I'm actually just going to use this rag.
Which, in case anybody's wondering, these are the easy wipers. Because you know it's my favorite thing to use in the studio.
A nice,
Yeah.
even coat. And this way, when you paint on it, it'll have a little oil to adhere to with the paint, but not overwhelming it, just kind of prepping it a little bit for you.
Yeah. You don't want it, like if I were to pick this up, you don't want it dripping off. You just want a very light coat.
Right.
So once this cures, which should probably take, I would say, how long would we let this cure for?
I mean,
before we
you
paint
can,
on this?
You don't even, you can, let it sit overnight if you want, but I would even just paint directly on that.
Yeah, so it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, see, these are the things I don't know. This is why I bring Heather in, because she's a genius. We have a question?
Would it take oils longer to dry if you paint directly on that surface versus like a canvas?
No.
No.
Well, yeah, because
I mean, if you're painting on a more absorbent surface, so if you're painting on a universal primed canvas versus oil prime versus panel, but I think it really has more to do with like how lean your paint
layers are. Yeah, because I mean,
'Cause
oils aren't going to really absorb that much into your.
Right.
Even if you're using the universal primer, it's not going to soak in that much to where it would really affect the dry time. I don't think.
And it's always difficult for us to give any direction on dry times, anything specific anyways, just because it's so variable. It has to do with the humidity, with the temperature, with how thick your paint is. And then it even can go down to the pigments that are used in the paint, because different pigments dry at different rates. So
It always depends on the environment you are in.
Yes.
And I have asked Heather so many times, how long is that dry? And she's like, well, it depends on the humidity and the temperature. And
you always get the same answer.
Yes.
The same
So-
non-answer.
yes. But it's so cool to actually be able to do that painting directly on this. And actually, let's switch over to that side camera because I did want to show you this. And this is something that makes me so happy. So I did the same color blue swatch that I've been doing on all of them. But the cool thing, even though we have that acrylic primer, you can still see that luminosity shining through of that metal surface, even through the primer and the paint. And it's just the coolest thing. I've actually seen an artist paint on this and then takes one of those, like the spatchers that we have, and then wipes away kind of to carve in different shapes like flowers and
Yeah,
things. And it's so cool to see. I actually believe he works in oil paints and he works directly on the surface. So he likes that slickness of that initial layer because then he can manipulate it around, which is really fun.
It's really cool when you have, new innovative art supplies that can be inspiring to what you're going to be creating.
Yes, which is why we love doing what we do, for you guys to check it out. Now, do we have another question?
Yeah. Stacy's wondering if you could use oil with cold wax directly on the aluminum, or if you would have to prime that first.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be just fine. So in case you didn't hear, cold wax medium on this should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oil, cold wax, all that good stuff.
Yes. Now, the last thing we did want to show you guys before we jump off of here is going, and honestly, I say that like we're about to be done. This is going to be a process.
This is
so
the fun part.
I'm going to take the Da Vinci Birch panel that we just showed you and show you guys how to officially take the canvas that we were going over in our very first show and how to mount it
Mount your very own canvas panels.
onto a panel. So if you have a roll of canvas or if you have even the canvas pads.
Yeah.
They
Well,
come
I
in.
mean, you know, what we've gone over, we have a wide variety of canvas panels that are already ready to go.
Yes.
A lot of different services to choose from, but we have even more canvas rolls available. So
Yes.
whatever it is that you're choosing to work on, you can create panels all
Absolutely.
yourself.
And we want to make sure that you guys are available or have the knowledge available to you. So this right here is the Clausen's
No.
166.
I thought that was a Centurion. Oh,
No,
I
this
like-
is Clausen's.
I did not
was
pick
the-
out that.
I was the
linen.
one that picked it out. Yeah. So this is the Clausen's 166, which is a beautiful linen. And on the back here, you will notice it's very faint, but we have red lines in each corner, which will fit
The panel.
the panel perfectly.
So on the back of the linen, it's easier to see this is a typical weave, and so it's going to be like a grid. So you want to make sure that your weave is straight with your panel. If you mount it and don't pay attention to that, it'll look wonky, especially if you can really see, like if it's a medium weave or heavier.
Something where this is a little bit more pronounced, that texture.
Right. So you want to pay attention to that when you're lining this up. So what I do is I try to find a line.
We were doing this earlier, and she was going cross-eyed. It was the best thing ever. It is very hard to see sometimes when it's very thin,
Right.
but you can find that
But you
one
wanna try to
thread.
find a line, follow it all the way down, and that's going to be, at least for me, the easiest way to make sure that it's lining up.
Yes.
But so that I wasn't sitting here like this, we went ahead and already did
Lined
that.
it, yep.
And measured it out, lined it up. So, the reason why we outlined it first is because we are going to use our glue. We're going to put a thin coat on the back of the linen and a thin coat on the panel.
Yes.
What if there are dents in the surface? Would you use something like Bondo to even it back out?
Dents in
In-
the surface of the panel?
Panel.
Yeah, I would. I mean, depending on how thick especially if you have a thin linen,
Yeah.
it's going to show all of those things. However, depending on how dented you're talking about, the glue that we're going to use is Yes Paste.
Which actually, for you guys can see. Haha, it's yes! Kind of like the canvas. Yes! Yes! But it's a paste, and it's a little thicker.
Thick. So
Yeah.
if you're just talking like minor dents, then it'll probably cover that up.
Yeah.
But if it's more pronounced, then yeah, I would try to get that to be as smooth as possible.
Although I probably would say you probably wouldn't want to use Bondo, which I went through Autobody, by the way. That is body filler. Bondo is a brand. Body filler is what it is. Which is odd that, sorry, high school flashbacks. But I would say if it's an art panel, you'd probably want to use something like modeling paste.
Yeah,
Specific,
something that you
archival.
know is going to be archival.
Yeah. And body filler, whatever the brand is that you use, I don't know 100% if
Yeah.
that's going to be archival.
Right. But
It's the
modeling
acidity
paste,
of it that would make
you'd
me
be
a little
fine.
bit. Sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, you're good.
But yes, it's that acidity of that stuff is that I would be a little worried about And modeling paste is definitely built for panels.
Yeah.
And you can sand it if you need to.
Yes.
So,
So what we are going to do, as far as adhering your canvas to your panel, you have a couple of options. We have the Yes Paste as we just showed you. We also have the Lineco neutral pH adhesive, which is used for, bookbinding or collage or mounting canvas to panels.
Yes.
You just want to make sure that you're using a neutral pH archival adhesive.
and this right here, it says acid-free right on the front, which is, if it doesn't say neutral pH, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
As well.
Right.
Now, the main difference between the two of them is that is much more fluid, whereas
Right.
this is that thicker paste.
So as far as applying it goes, you can use the spatchers. These are fantastic. You can also use a palette knife for like the Yes Paste.
Yes. So I got a big old blob. I'm just gonna very thinly apply it here. And I'm probably going to go over, not probably, I am gonna go over those lines a little bit extra just to make sure that wherever that panel hits on here, I want there to be glue. Or it's some kind of adhesive situation.
And for me, any areas that I'm going over the side, you can use a rag. You don't have to use your finger. I'm a heathen. But
She's using her hands.
you want to make sure that you clean it off the side so you have a nice even amount all the way around.
Now, if this is something that you are going to be doing on a regular basis, the Yes Paste also comes in a really big jar.
Yes.
About twice
Yes.
the size of this. So I think it's like, it's a big, I can't remember exactly the ounces of what it is, but there is a larger jar of Yes Paste, which is fantastic. I use it for all things adhesion. This is also a great collage glue.
Also, you'll notice, so we're both kind of taking big globs on here. You want to make sure that you get even coverage all the way around, but also once you know that everything is covered, come back in with that palette knife, smooth everything out, because anything that is not smooth will probably show up, especially for, this is a lighter weight. I mean, it's still good
Still
and
kinda
sturdy,
good,
but
yeah.
it's a little bit.
You don't want
There.
there to be like a big, like I don't want to leave that and try to stick that down.
Right.
We sell the Yes Paste in 16 ounce, 32 ounce, and 1 gallon sizes.
1 gallon. There's a bigger one.
That's a really
I need a
big one.
gallon of Yes Paste.
I love it.
So, I'm sorry. You said 16 ounce.
16 ounce,
32
32 ounce, and a gallon.
Yep, 16, 32, and a gallon.
Love it.
Oh,
All right. So, how are you doing?
I am pretty covered. I just want to make sure that it's nice and even. All right, so we got our glue down. Now, would I flip this over on you, or would you flip that over here?
I am going to put the panel on the canvas.
Yes. I'm going to reach around over here, put that down. And the reason why is because you can line up your marks so easy if you put the panel down on the canvas.
Yep.
Fun fact, I was trying to do it the other way. And Heather looked at me like I had 3 heads. Understandably.
I knew you were going to get there.
Yep.
So, also, just to note, we made sure that we're working on a nice clean surface, but since you're putting your primed side of your canvas down, you want to make sure that you're only putting that on a clean surface.
Yes.
So once you have your canvas in the right spot, ready to go,
Glued. We don't just leave it. We do need to add pressure. Pressure. Under pressure. All right, I can't sing that all because we will get booted. But
so we
big ol' box.
were very lucky that we had this perfectly sized tub of Soho acrylic paint.
Now, actually, let's go over to the side here because I want to show you guys this. So you can see.
Yeah, you do not need just a tub of Soho acrylic paint. It can
Just
be
to paint with.
just for a weight.
Yeah.
This works out perfectly because you want to make sure that the weight that you're putting on the panel is going to be equal weight all the way around.
Yes. So not only is it fully covering all of that, but it's also, if I turn this, and I'm sorry, this primed panel, again, this is a clean surface, but you normally would not want to
Yeah.
shift it around. But it's also covering the entire side this way, so it just happened to fit perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's very heavy, but if you don't have a giant tub of acrylics like we do, you can use, I have my actual like dumbbells
Yeah.
at home, like,
And if you're
kinds
doing
of
that,
things.
just,
Books.
you know, have any sort of tub surface, just fill it up with the weights, and that way it'll kind
Yeah.
of spread across.
yes, big old weight.
Yes.
We have questions.
Couple. All about the yes paste.
Yes.
Can the yes paste be used with acrylics?
What do you mean with,
Like, will it mess with the priming or anything?
no.
Or you couldn't use that? Okay.
Now,
and
are
then-
you talking about a thing that's already been painted? Like a panel? If you are talking about the canvas has already been painted with acrylics, if that's what you mean, let Amanda know, because I'm curious.
And then also, can you use yes paste for gluing watercolor paper to a panel?
Yes, absolutely. You can glue. This is the same process I would do for if I want to glue down paper to my panels as
Yeah.
well. So not only can you glue canvas to it, you can glue paper. So if you're a watercolorist, that would actually be fantastic.
Yeah.
I
Artist glue. Artist approved glue.
I would probably suggest though, if you are doing watercolor, we might want to pre-stretch the watercolor paper before you glue it down.
That sounds like another episode.
That is
explaining
definitely
stretching.
definitely another episode. How to stretch your watercolor paper, which I will, if you guys want that,
Noted.
put it in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen this year. So it's just one of those things that I'm definitely wanting to show you guys. So stay tuned. Make sure you guys check back for that episode. But once we get, sorry,
I got an
before-
answer.
oh yes, we got an answer.
Can it be used with already painted acrylics on either paper or canvas?
The yes paste? I would say yes, it could. The issue being is that you want to mount your canvas before you paint it,
Yeah.
right?
Ideally.
Ideally.
Mostly because, as you can see, the surface is going face down.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
With
the
a lot of weight.
easiest. It's going to be the easiest for you if you can not damage your surface.
Yeah. Now, for me, I'm also thinking of my acrylic paintings that have a lot of texture. That might be a issue.
Yeah,
Because
'cause-
again, you want to put a lot of surface pressure or a lot of pressure on the top of it.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of is that if you had like a piece of foam or something that you could lay down, then have your impasto acrylics hitting the foam rather than like just a hard surface, because it's gonna. It's just that would be the only thing I could think of. Like if you have an impasto.
I'm gonna say
Painting.
try to, especially if you're painting impasto,
Yeah.
just try to do it ahead of time before you paint it. I don't know about putting any sort of impasto painting onto a surface and then putting weight on top of it.
Yeah, you would probably damage it.
Yeah.
But where there is a will, there is a way.
Yes, but if what you're talking about is a very thin painting, doesn't have any texture that you're worried about, then, you know, maybe laying some glycine down first just as an extra layer of protection and then mounting it, I'm sure that would be fine.
Yeah, and the yes paste will absolutely work for those
Yeah.
canvas. I almost said canvas panels, but the canvas that's already painted. Yes. Now, once this cures, we said again, this is the part where I was asking, well, how long does it dry? And Heather's answer,
It depends on how thick it is and the humidity and the temperature.
yes. So I was like, but ballpark, 24 hours, we should be about good for this to be dry.
Yeah.
Unless you're underwater. Then good luck.
Yeah.
But once this is officially cured and dry and ready and set to go, now I am going to actually get this out of the way just so you guys can see what we're doing. But I'm gonna actually put that box of acrylics back on this once it's clean and ready to go.
So first I'll show you, so switching over the linen, I wanted to mount the Sargent herringbone because it's much more pronounced weave. And so just to kind of show you why it's so important to make sure that you're lining up with the grain. It's just going to, maybe the side camera?
Yeah, if you mount this slightly wonky, you're gonna see it, and if
It'll
you're
just look
anything
weird.
like me, it's gonna drive you nuts. But yeah, if you really do, make sure to follow along, and this side's probably a little bit easier to see. If you follow along that weave and make sure to line that up, you're gonna get your weave kind of right on where it needs to be. But that's why it's important.
And that kind of goes into, so now we move into how do we finish these off?
Yes, because we have a lot of extra
Right.
canvas on the edges.
So for this one, this is super easy, especially because we're mounting it on these lovely Da Vinci panels that have the nice wood cradle. So I'm simply going to take an X-Acto knife and very carefully,
That's why I think you got a little bit of glue
I
coming
do.
out. Which, if you do have a little bit of glue coming out, it's not the end of the world. Try to catch that before it officially cures, but just because the cutting process is a little bit harder, but you can cut through that. It's not going to hurt it. But make sure you let the X-Acto blade do its job. You don't need a ton of pressure, but you want to make sure that you're going in the right spot more than trying to cut it in one cut. You can go over it a
Yeah.
couple times.
definitely.
And this is probably, I think, the easiest way to finish off mounting a canvas to a panel, just because this is the easiest. It's you'll see in a minute. We have a more complicated way to show you in just 1 second.
You got options.
Yes. Because I had to be a little bit extra and be like, but what if you wanted to put canvas wrapped around the edges? But for you guys to see, this
And-
right here is your official canvas.
Also, because you kind of have some little stragglers, because it is linen, you can take,
Here, so they can see. Haha.
you can take some sandpaper. I was just looking for a very gritty sandpaper. I don't know how else to describe it.
It needs to be a little bit more rough. I was actually trying to find the grit of this sandpaper. Here, we got the overhead now. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the grit of the sandpaper is, and unfortunately, this is the only piece of sandpaper I had lying around here. I'm guessing it's somewhere between like 80 grit and 120, so it has a good roughness to it, but it's not, like 220 is too fine of a sandpaper, and I think like 40 would be too much. You don't want to knock it down that bad, but
Yeah, it's just
this is
getting any little fibers that are
Yeah.
still there, but
yeah. And that'll also knock down any of that extra glue.
Yes,
that's
that
in
too.
there. So
yeah. So that is the easiest way to finish off your mounted linen. However, as Emmy said,
I had to get extra. Now, if you guys do have any questions about the rest of this process, feel free to put them in the chats. We are going to move on to the next far more complicated way.
because Emmy was not satisfied with that.
I mean, I gotta give you guys options, you know? Let me put that up here. So, like I was saying, I wanted to see if we could wrap it around the edges, and we can.
course you can.
It just takes a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to give you the two options.
Yes.
We had to give you, and there's no other way of saying this. This is, my teacher coined this term, so if my teacher is watching, I hope you are. This is what we call a very sexy corner. You have to have a nice corner when you have canvas wrapped around the edges. You don't want to just kind of willy-nilly leave this all wonky. You want to have a real pretty corner, you know? because that's gonna be visible.
Also with the fold inside, not over, you can see.
What do you mean? Oh yeah,
the folded
this right
part.
here.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is on the inside, not just over the edge, kind of a thing.
Right.
And I'm going to show you how to do that very specifically on here. So when you do mount canvas to a panel, the one thing we did realize as we were doing this is that you want to do two of the opposite sides at the same time and then move on to the other sides, kind of a thing.
For demo purposes, we can't really do that
Yes.
on this panel, but when you are doing it yourself, work
on
here,
two sides, yes. And we did that specifically for a reason, because we wanted to show you two options of how to get a really nice corner. Now, the folded is a little bit more of a complicated thing. Here, let me make sure I'm at the right angle. Okay, so if you have one side already done, or even, you know, maybe that's not actually done yet, you fold up your edge. You want to make sure you get this kind of started, right? And then naturally it just wants to kind of crease in, right? So that's going to give you that nice edge. But now what do you do with all of this? You just kind of lay it flat. But the key to getting a really, really pretty corner is to make sure that that fold goes along that the corner edge, and your excess doesn't stick off over the edge of your panel. Because if this is sticking up like this, you're gonna see it once it's finished, and you don't want that.
Right. And you can see on the side that we have finished how nice that looks.
Yes. So it actually lands right on the edge there. But if you were to do this, the reason why we're saying is that you want to do one side and then the other is because the way, since we did that corner and then that edge, the way that we ended up having to fold this side is that it wraps up and over that way, whereas like this one wraps up and over this way. So if you want to keep your folds going the same direction, do the edges.
You want it uniform.
Yes, you want to make it look like it all kind of belongs. But you want to pre-fold it before you officially tack it in or anything like that, right?
Yes,
Now,
definitely.
the next step is to glue the side of your panel here. So I'm going to use that Yes paste. And since I'm on this side of the thing, I'm going to actually do it here. So again, just a real thin layer, just to get it kind of tacked down. And do we have any questions while I am gluing this? I will make sure. I do also want to make sure that the glue goes all the way down to the edge here. And this one, we didn't actually glue the canvas as well as the panel.
Right.
Just because
This is just like an
Yeah.
added bonus security.
yeah.
So I'm not as concerned about, I mean, you can, of course, glue the canvas side as well, but it's not as necessary.
It's not required because we're going to tack it down with copper tacks.
Yep.
So now that I have the glue on there, I'm going to do my fold, and it's already ready to go because I've already pre-folded it, so I don't have to fiddle with it too crazy. But I want to get this center, I want to kind of get my fold started, and then I mostly want to work on the center here. So I'm going to get this nice, oh, sorry, I'm blocking the camera. I'm going to get this nice and tight, and then Heather,
I'm gonna come in with the copper tacks.
and I'm going to get my hand out of the way before she smacks it. But that's where you want to actually start, is right in the middle, not on the edge.
Right.
Right.
Start in the middle. I like to put my tacks like 2 inches apart.
So again, I'm going to keep it nice and tight. Now, if
And then you work your way out.
Yes. Now, if you are doing this with one hand, pull it nice and tight, secure it with one hand, and then come in with a hammer. A tack hammer is a lot easier,
Yes.
especially because it'll hold your tack,
Yep.
and you don't have to fiddle with extra hands, kind of a thing. But we did the middle, we did this side, and then we also want to go down here So again, if I were to do this corner folded, I want to make sure to fold that beforehand, but we're not going
Right.
to do that. And I probably am going to say let's do one more here, and then we're going to call that it for this side. When it comes to tacking in your corners here, you want to make sure you tack anywhere where there is an edge. So this one, we would probably need to have 2 tacks here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really secure down in there.
So I will do this one first.
We have sorry, we're hammering.
We do have a question. Why would you not cut out the bulk of that corner before tacking it down?
You can cut out the extra bulk here. And if you are really a seasoned, I guess, kind of edge folder canvas, if you're very well acquainted with doing this on your edges, yes, do that. The issue being is that once you cut that canvas, it's gone. So for longevity purposes, if you ever want to take this off, that just comes from a mindset of like stretching it on stretcher bars. If you ever want to take this off, because we glued this, you're probably never going to get this down or off the panel. But if you ever want to get it off of your stretcher bars, you kind of need to leave that in case you need to have a little extra something to wrap around the next one.
Right. Also, when you are like cutting out that extra on the inside, you have to be very specific. You really do have to know where you're cutting, because otherwise it can look kind of weird and get kind of lumpy.
Yes. Now we do have a second option if you don't want to do this, right? So we're going to tack this corner here before we get to the second option. No, what Heather's doing is she's taking that underlying layer and pulling it in a little bit more, just so it's not sticking off over the edge. Whoop, that's okay.
My bad.
Hammer it in.
All right. Ideally, yours will go in straight.
Sure.
And you will not be doing this at a
Wonky.
weird angle.
Yeah, we're at a weird angle for the camera, but if this does happen to you, I would suggest taking the nail or the little tack out and then putting in a new one.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because we need to move on for you guys, we wanted to show you how to do a corner without having to fold it.
Yes.
And that one requires more cutting.
Yay.
But we need to do it this direction so you guys can see it. I'm going to actually switch with Heather because she's going to be doing the cutting, and I'm just going to hold it for her. So this is the same process of how we trimmed off the other one, but we're going along the edge of that corner and getting it loose, all right, up until that right there, right?
Yes. So again, if this is how your plan for the whole canvas, you would have glued this side and this side, and once these two dry, it's very easy to make a nice cut. We just glued this down, so this is not the ideal time to cut this side, but we will.
I was like, are we?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Now, yeah, there we let's do it, I guess kind of, sorry, this is going to be awful for the camera. We're going to cut it real fast. Can we switch it? Oh, there we go. Overhead. So Heather's doing the exact same thing that she just did. She's taking the razor blade and going just along that edge to where it is nice and flush with the edge of that canvas, right?
Yes.
Now we're not going to sand this, correct?
Nope. Not doing anything.
We do have a little extra
Let me
goober there.
sorry,
Yes.
trim that guy.
So you definitely want to make sure, oh, sorry, you don't have a whole lot of extra going over the edge of your canvas because it will be visible, right?
Right. Let me do that over here as well.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go for
Is
it.
Yes Paste reversible from a conservation point of view?
I don't think it is.
I have no, well, I do not know.
That is a good question. As far as the reversibility of Yes Paste, we're gonna have to get back with you on that one.
Yeah.
We'll take a
We'll
look
have
at
to-
that.
We should check with the vendor. Just
Yes.
because conservationists have a lot of really cool tricks up their sleeves. So, as far as what I know, I can do, no. But
Well,
art conservation has
yeah.
gotten very advanced. So I'm not sure if there is something that they have for different glues.
Yeah, but that's a great question. Thank you for asking. We love questions that we don't know the answer to, because then we will absolutely figure it out, and we will probably tag you in the comments, because I believe that's on YouTube, right? So we'll find out and post an answer as soon as we know.
Emmy, while you're doing that,
Yes.
is there a reason that you're not putting it on the back edge before you tack it?
Just because the tacks really hold it in place. You honestly
the
could,
glue?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you probably could skip the glue on the edges if you really wanted to.
Yeah, we're just doing it as added security. But yeah, the tacks are very
They're
secure.
pretty in there. It's almost similar to stretching, but we're adding the glue just so it really, really holds it down on the edges,
Also,
you know?
like, keeps those nice creases.
Yeah. All right, so ideally,
Again,
I'm gonna not hammer because I am not that coordinated today. I'm gonna make Heather do it. I'm gonna just hold it nice and tight for her, and then once she gets it tacked into the actual wood, I'm gonna move my hand so she can do that. Now,
for
so-
these, we would just go all the way down.
all the way down. Again, start in the middle,
Yep.
work your way out to the edges.
Even sides.
Yes. Perfect.
Now, if we could pretend like we waited for this to dry, I would typically wait for this side to dry and then we come back in and cut, but we will go ahead and do that now.
Let's do it this direction so you guys can see.
Yes.
Right?
Is there a reason you're not using canvas pliers?
We're
It's
working on a very small
Yeah.
canvas.
And canvas pliers are better more for like when you're stretching it around stretcher bars. That's.
I mean, because at this point, we've already glued the
Yeah, this-
linen to the surface, so we're not going to be
We're
getting
not gonna be
any
stretching it.
stretch out of the linen.
Yeah, we're really just pulling it tight so it's as flush to that edge as possible.
Yeah.
But there's no give to this because we glued this first and we let that cure and
Right.
then we started doing the edges, right? Yeah. Now, granted, I will say if you do want to have this tacked in and then you want to add some kind of a plier situation to really hold it down on there, that's a great option. But just for our time purposes, we're just gonna run through this so you guys can see what we're doing. Again, Heather is just cutting along the edge there. And then with the back, you can actually go in at a bit of an angle, and apologize for the...
Sorry.
No, it's fine because I want to make sure you don't cut your hands off. You can cut it straight to the edge there, or you can actually cut it at a bit of an angle if you wanted to, just to kind of cut off a bit more of that excess.
Yeah.
But if you don't cut off that excess, again, you can tack it here at the end, but watch out for your other tacks. It's
Yeah.
just one thing to know. So once you have that nice and secure, and again, ideally, this would be dry and stuck down, but it's not dry and stuck down. It's still wanting to move on us, but that would be
a sexy corner.
A still very, very pretty, very sexy corner for canvas. And that is where it gives you the option of having it wrapped around your panel instead of just having the cradle still visible. So we wanted to give you guys options, you know?
Yeah.
Now, do we have any questions with these before we move on? Although I don't think
that
that
was
it.
That was it.
Oh my gosh, that was it. But yes, if you guys do have any questions, pop them in the chat real quick. But if we do not get to your questions, of course, we always go back through and make sure to check and answer any of the ones that we haven't gotten to. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of panels.
Yeah.
A lot of information. And again, we usually try to give you a good variety. It's not even all of them.
Yeah,
There's still
there's a
more
lot
out
more.
there. Yeah. So if you type in canvas panels in our search bar, you're going to get a lot of options. But just pay attention to the different descriptions of whether or not it's cotton being put on the panel, or if it's linen, oil primed, or universal primed, or even acrylic primed is the term that they use.
Right.
But there's a lot of options out there, guys. So this was something that we wanted to show because canvas, like stretched canvas, is great, but there's just a lot of other options
You have a
for
lot
us.
of options, and your surface is important.
Yes, it is very much so. So one last call for questions.
Okay.
I think we are good. If you guys do have any more, just pop them in the chat. Even in the future, we'll check.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to join us next week. Although because we did shift our schedule around, next week we are not going to continue Canvas Palooza. We are going to have our guest in. I'm so excited. Jeff Olson is going to be on, guys. So we are going to be going over oil paints, specifically the Rembrandt and Cobra, which is a water mixable oils. And I know we have a lot of questions for those. So be sure to join us, and we will see you then. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Bye, guys.